in, could literally talk trading and investing, just the markets in general at nauseum, right? So it's a pleasure being here. It's a pleasure to maybe expose some new ideas to some new folks. And I don't think that's ever a bad thing.
I
So,
forgot to tell you the memo, the stash. You were supposed to get the stash in by Friday. I completely forgot to tell you about getting the stash in.
bro, do I look like a kind of guy that can grow facial hair?
No, I'm just kidding. I know exactly. I feel you though. Hey, I like what you're working with though. It's good though. It's fine. It's
Dude, 32 years old. I cannot grow a beard.
that's hey.
Can't,
Well, then it's how you have the mediums. You have the guys that are just like woof, like just hairy as can be. Then you've got guys that can't grow any hair. Then you get the guy like I'm the in betweener. It's not great, but it's okay. It's not
yeah,
massive.
I just embrace it. It's like, here's the flip side of this. I can't grow a beard. Whatever, who cares? I'll be a younger looking 50, 60 year old, I suppose.
100%. And I guess you don't have to worry about all those weird, gross hairs on the back that grow.
That's true. That's true. Glass half full, man.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And this is, by the way, it's being recorded. So I have, of course, this is on YouTube right now. But anyone asking in chat, or of course, if you wanted to know too, Ashton, I have had this recorded, so I will upload this pretty much after we're done and have it up on YouTube, so people can just kind of go straight to the interview.
Cool.
So, boss, tell me real quickly. I didn't ask you to tell, but I didn't think about this. Did you get any trades in today? What have you traded, or even this week? What have you kind of been looking at? What have you been trading?
Uh, so yes and no. The way I trade is not the way a lot of people are programmed to think that trading is. And what I mean by that is I don't get in and out of positions a whole lot. So since I'm a swing trader, that's one of the reasons. So I'll hold positions for anywhere from 3 days to, I'd say, 2 or 3 weeks. Traditionally, in a bullish market, I have no problem holding a swing trade position for 2 or 3 months. But that is not the case, because buying shares right now is not conducive to swing trading in this market, because market's all over the place.
Right.
So I have since adjusted that probably about a year ago, I would say.
In preparation for what you thought was going to come?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it was just so obvious, man.
Right.
Like the valuations.
I just love your because you always talk about leading the pack. So I always go back to sports. I was broadcast journalism major, work for ESPN. But think about football. You want to lead the. You're always trying to think out ahead of time, right? And so you're like, sometimes when I see a head and shoulder, some creation happen and it forms, and I'm calling it ahead of time and it happens. I'm like, yeah. Here you are. I'm not even thinking about it. Here you are a year out, which is just like almost point me, and it kind of blows my mind. Like, there you are leading the receiver that far out. I'm thinking like a week in advance, a month in advance. You see what I'm saying? So that's why I brought that up. That's great foresight, 100%.
Yeah. Well, I was talking about it, on social media. I wasn't like, saying run for the gate. I was not doing any of that nonsense. But, if things go up that fast, you and I both know that it's got to come down and at least take a breather.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Now, did I expect the market to do what it's been doing? No, not at all. I'm still in shock at how bad the market has pulled back. But I was expecting some kind of a breather.
Right.
That makes a lot of sense. From a trader's perspective.
100%. Yeah.
So what I was preparing myself, this is around May or June of last year, and I was like, okay, well, the sentiments about the shift, I just didn't know to what degree. So swing trading shares to the upside is going to fall out of favor, at least temporarily.
Right.
So I switched my game plan slightly to where, okay, I want to start, instead of holding positions for 2 or 3 months, I want to hold positions for 3 or 4 days. 2 ways to do that. One, with shares. But if you do it with shares, you need really large positions to even make it worthwhile.
Right.
Or you trade in the options market, right? Far more liquid, or not liquid, but it's a natural leverage vehicle. There's a lot of different ways you could do that. So it's like, you know what? I'm going to switch back to my options trading, because I've dabbled in options for years, but never really took it seriously. I've been selling covered calls for a long time, cash secured puts for a long time, vertical spreads for a long time, but I never did that exclusively. So it's always just been a complement to what I do. So last May, I'm just like, okay, I'm going to exclusively be trading these types of setups with options until the market gets back in the favor of swing trading shares. And a lot of people ask me, how did you recognize this? I'm just like, well, it's not a clear cut answer. A lot of it just has to do with a trained eye and experience in the market, and that's why I tell people, if you're wanting to trade, I mean, you have to be in the market for at least a year, so that way you can see a market cycle.
Right. Oh yeah. I never get that at first when I first started. I thought, yeah, and I always tell everyone this. You think you just learn over the basics, and you can just jump right like a video game. Let me just learn kind of the basics and jump right in. Like, no. You've got to see that play out, and that we call watching the film time, whatever you want to call it. You got to put that experience in. And why I didn't realize after 6 to 7, like I've got to be in here every day and watch this move. If I don't figure out what and how this stuff's moving, I'm never gonna figure this stuff out.
Yeah, and people try to rush time, and unfortunately that's the one thing you can't rush is
Right.
time.
Yeah.
So I started to recognize this back in June, and went head all in on options, and really started to hone in those skills. And man, that was probably one of the best decisions I've made in my trading career. So really, I've been teaching options for a long time, but exclusively the past year and a half or so. Which brings me to my next point of what exactly I'm doing in this kind of market. Whenever I say options, people think one of two things. One, oh, you're in it for the big, huge 1,000% gains. And it's very unfortunate that whenever somebody says I'm an options trader, there's a certain caricature or certain facade that people view you as, because of what's happened in 2020 and 2021, and a lot of new traders, amateur traders, completely and utterly abusing the options market, and a lot of people made a lot of money very, very quickly. But you and I both know that a lot of those individuals are nowhere to be found now because they were abusing it. They were leveraging an already leveraged vehicle,
right? Yeah.
With options, and they weren't doing it responsibly. And as far as I'm concerned, if I'm being honest, I'm biased on this, and I get a lot of hate from other options traders on this. Options were not designed to get in and get out. They're not designed to do that. The options contract, if you buy a contract, it's literally a contract that says, if price falls down to this level, I want to buy the right, not the obligation, to buy at a discounted price.
Exactly, yeah.
That's what options are designed to do. So like Nancy Pelosi, for example, a lot of people, oh, she's the best trader ever. She is much smarter than people actually give her credit for, because she's actually, the way she does it, whenever she buys options, she's doing it as these options are designed to work. And what I mean by that is whenever she buys Roblox contracts, she buys them really deep in the money. And she does that for a reason. It's because they actually have intrinsic value whenever you buy them deep in the money. And then most of the time, what I've noticed with her is that she actually exercises those contracts, which means she takes the shares.
Right, yeah.
She's using options as they're designed to. The other way options are designed are to be the options seller. It still blows my mind on how many people who are trading options or trying to figure it out don't even know that you can sell options instead of buy them. So there's a wild statistic, and it depends, and it depends on who you talk to. But as a rule of thumb, roughly 80% of all options contracts expire worthless.
Right, yeah.
They go to zero. So to me, that is the no-brainer. That's whenever you buy options, by the way. So we all know that if we buy an options contract, every day it becomes worth a little bit less because of theta decay.
Exactly.
And that's why eventually, as it gets closer to expiration, that's why it goes to zero if it's out of the money, right? That right there is proof that the math is overwhelmingly against you. As traders, we want the probability, as much probability and as much favor in our camp as possible. That's where options selling comes in. So instead of 80% of the options expiring, not going against you, options expiring, benefits the option sellers.
Right.
So now 80% chance that's in my favor now. So that's exclusively what I teach. And not only it's way safer, it's way easier to mitigate your risk. The math is overwhelmingly in your favor. There are certain barrier to entries, just like any other trading strategy. No doubt, it takes time to learn, and on some of these strategies, it does take a little bit more capital. But that's the whole point. The whole point is to be able to learn a skill and repeat it over and over for the rest of your life.
Right. Yeah, right.
And so that way you can be a 65-year-old dude sitting on a beach somewhere trading options, doing it responsibly, and you've been doing it for 40 years.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So, and a lot of people say, well, I don't have the capital to do this strategy. I get that, but that's a goal worth having. Right.
Right. And so I was micro goals. We want macro. We all like we were talking about. We all want to make money. We all want to make, we want that time to fly by where it's 2 years from now and I'm that, or 10 years, or I'm 40 years into it. Micro goal after micro goal after micro goal. Have those goals so that way that's a big macro to live up to, and then you live up to that versus you have that one goal all the way down the line. You're trying to live all the way up to that right off the bat. You're very much likely not going to attain that goal because that's just such a huge gap. When you put these little small ones in the way, you're most likely to attain it. So do you want to get?
I was talking with Deck, Rashawn. I mean, this was a couple of months ago. I was teaching some folks on covered calls, right? That's one of the many strategies of selling options. And the drawback of covered calls is that it does require the capital because you have to acquire 100 shares of the underlying stock first. So, and I challenge people. They're like, but I can't do it on stocks like Apple or Nvidia or definitely Tesla.
Yeah, right. Tesla, right.
I understand that, but you got to start somewhere. And I'm telling you, and I posed a question to everybody. It's like, is it a bad goal to set for yourself to eventually own 100 shares of Apple? It's not a bad goal, right?
Yeah.
So, and that does several things. One, it keeps you hungry, right? So you're looking at small incremental goals, to your point, micro goals, right? And you buy a few shares here, a few shares there. So it keeps you hungry. And two, it keeps you humble.
Right. Yeah.
And you and I both know that if you are not humble, the market will humble you against your will, and it will do it quickly. So it's a way. Selling options, you're not going to get the 1,000% gains.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. Mathematically impossible. But what it is going to do is going to get you consistency. And as a newer trader, that is the one thing you need most is consistency,
Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah.
That's where most people drop off is they'll have, 9 wins in a row. And then that one loss wipes out all those wins.
Had a 22. Yeah, I do my website, my sessions, whatever. Had a guy had 22 wins in a row. And I love Jordan, so he was going for that 23rd in a row. I'm like, yeah, Michael Jordan number coming up next. And he went for that 23rd win in a row, and that 23rd trade, which would have been a win, tournament was a loss, and took out all 22 wins. I'm like, how? 1 or 2, fine, maybe even 3 or 4 if you're newer on, but you're talking that what, like, God. And so yeah, you can't have that. And that's what a lot of they do. And I call it rinse and repeat, but like you talked about, you want to do something, if you want to find something that you're 60, 70%, especially 70+% win rate on, like you have a consistency of that high of a win rate, just do that day in, day out. If it doesn't happen that day, wait for the next day. I mean, if you have that, just wait for it. And that's why I say patience. We always talk about it in chat. Patience, it pays off, P-A-Y. We spell it P-A-Y, patience, because it pays off to be patient. But patience, right? That's another thing that traders just don't have at first, and they think they may have it, and it completely ruins them. But that consistency is... because that's where all it builds. If you find consistency, your discipline rolls up. Your patience starts getting better. All that starts getting bigger and bigger and bigger to where you become a successful trader. And a lot of traders don't want to rinse and repeat. They think that that's not a successful thing. I'm like, no, find something that you can rinse and repeat and do it. I mean, any successful trader I've heard from you, POV Joshua guy used to be, I think still in chat, a guy that makes lots of money. That's what we teach. I mean, if you can do something at a high consistency rate, there's no point to change it. In the whole saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah. I tell my people, I'm just like, successful trading is really boring. It's really, really boring because you're literally Monday through Friday, February to January, you're doing the same thing. every single day. Your approach does not change. Of course, you want to evolve,
Right.
right?
Oh
You
yeah.
need to evolve, and you need to know how to adapt. But your underlying strength and your underlying strategy doesn't change,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know. And
Speaking
with
of
our
evolving,
society,
we were talking about Thanos. We were talking about Thanos earlier because I see back to the Infinity Gauntlet. Because I come up with goofy terms. I call it like old resistance equals new support. I call it a sandwich area. Anyway, so you get my point. I come up with stupid sayings. I'm like, oh, let your sandwich, Josh. My newest one. It's called the Thanos crossover, and so it's with the Mac. I'm using moving averages. I'm using a MACD. I have to, but it's essentially it shows when something's bearish or when something's bullish. And I mean, every time I've been seeing this recently, it has been money. And so I'm talking about it back to the evolving thing. I'm evolving, seeing this new strategy. I used to see, but I kind of like you, like options did for a while, kind of moved away from it. Now you're seeing something. Oh shit, this really actually really works really well. I'm a more established trader now. I can actually probably handle this theory and strategy. Let's actually work on this. But anyway, it's called I'm calling it the Thanos crossover. Coming to a chat and a screen near you, so I'll let you know when I'm fully established with the Thanos crossover.
oh man, and I'm all for that, and that's a fine line, which and a lot of new traders really fall into this trap. Hell, experienced traders fall into this trap too, and that is chasing that shiny new coin that's rolling across the room, and it is perfectly okay. Matter of fact, it's encouraged, in my opinion, to add a new wrinkle to your trading repertoire over time. Just one little wrinkle, just to take it to that next level, because we're always evolving. But the problem, though, becomes whenever you completely scrap everything and well, this isn't working because I've been trading it for 2 weeks and it's not working in 2 weeks. So I'm going to look at this one, go down the YouTube rabbit hole. And
Right.
The problem with YouTube is a great tool. Don't get me wrong. But the problem with it when it comes to trading is that you can watch one YouTube video on how to trade, and then you can literally watch another one 7 minutes later, and they will completely contradict each other.
I was just about to say they're going to exactly contradict each other. Yes.
So, and I've been there, right?
Yeah.
Whenever we all start on our trading journey, almost all of us at least resort to YouTube, at least to some degree. And that's one thing I found very early on was, okay, well, this guy's using this indicator and this guy's using this indicator, and they completely contradict each other. So that doesn't make any sense. So I was actually telling somebody in my group today, I was just like, they're like, oh yeah, I want to join this guy's program. I'm just like, let me recommend something, and that is focus on one thing at a time. One thing at a time.
Yep.
Or else you're going to get tugged in so many different directions.
Yep.
And then you're going to start questioning yourself originally what you were doing, and vice versa.
You're a man. I love when I hear this because I'll teach it. Just recently, one of my big things I've been saying, because I mean, all the time, of course, do this. You get, what about the VWAP? Or what about this indicator? What about that? And so I tell them early on, like exactly what you're saying. I'm like, imagine you have all these, back to me and video games, whatever. You have all these different little, you only have 10 marbles is my point, but you have 20 different assets, or however many, as in VWAP, you've got you have all these different things. Don't invest so many marbles. Go one at a time, right? Don't go, I'm going to put one here, one here, one here, one here, one here, one here, one here. Get your charting down. Get your VWAP or whatever you want to learn that. Get your then level 2 down. Get this. Don't, if you try to get exactly, you're going to be pulled all over the place, and you're going to be like a rubber band, and you're going to be like, you need to be here and centered versus all stretched out, Yep. And so same thing.
I think if you are to make a pivot as a trader, because I mean, let's be honest. I mean, if you're trading a strategy and you've been trading it for a year and it's just not working, maybe it's not the strategy itself, because there are a million ways to make money in the market, right? And people ask, well, what's the best trading strategy? And I say, all of them. So the way you trade is very different than how I trade, and could be very different on how Sean trades, and,
right.
and everybody else in between. But I say, if a strategy that you're looking at and you're watching it and you're learning it, and it to your core makes so much sense to you, that could be a good reason to pivot or add an extra layer into your trading.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, trading is all about your personality.
Right. What fits best for you? I always say that. We're all going to be different. I mean, even like me and you I would say for twins, me and you were twins. We both got the same cut, same we're going to get healed at a different time. We're not going to heal because we're twins and we have the same. No, we're two different humans, honestly, still in the end. And you're going to heal at a different time than I'm going to heal, most likely. We're all different. We're all going to think a little different. And so you've got to find out what fits you best. And even going back to your chat room and your mentor, find which, like, that's why I kind of stayed with Sean forever ago. I liked the way he talked. I liked it just was fitting with me. I'm like, this is kind of fitting. I like it. And so I stayed with it. And then, but even when it comes to that, anything you do in life, hell, I love Ferraris, BMWs, and Jeeps. I'm not over here getting Buicks and Nissan. Why? Because that's what, you know what I'm saying? So find what that, and use that same kind of mentality is what I always say in stock trading. If you could think like you normally do in the normal world and go, yeah, like me, I love all food, so I hate olives, right? You won't see me eating an olive, right? So you won't see me trading this setup or strat, right? And so I'm like, do that same thing, have that same kind of thought process. If this fits you, it's probably going to fit you. If it's not fitting you real well and you don't like it, it's probably not your style or setup or strategy.
That is probably the one thing that took me the longest to figure out. Whenever I started in the stock game, I was day trading. I was day trading penny stocks. And man, I dug myself to a massive hole really in the first 3 to 6 months. And it took me another year to dig out of that hole. I then day traded for about 3.5 years. It just got to the point to where it was completely against the grain of my personality. To where I got tired of fighting it.
Right.
I eventually started becoming profitable in day trading, but it just took so much out of me for whatever reason.
Right. It reminds me of Day Trade Professor. Y'all, I don't know if you follow him and his poor Instagram, but Day Trade Professor said the same thing at the seminar in Florida. He was like, man, this wasn't for me. I was like, I tried to do that day. It just, at the end of the day, I realized that day trading and doing the low cap stuff wasn't for me.
Yep. And plus there's a lot of things that can happen in one's life that changes that. So for me, I was newly married. I had my daughter was born, and I just did.
Congratulations.
Thank you. She's 7 now.
That's crazy. Time
so
flies.
it just got to the point where I was so sick of the ups and downs and the roller coaster, and I'm just like, I want something a little bit more low stress. I want something a little slower moving. A lot of people get paused by that. Like, oh, slower mover. Yeah. Once you get punched in the face enough, you're kind of forced to look at things just a little bit differently.
Yeah.
And that's why I switched to swing trading. And a lot of people, there's some personalities who are day traders, and they just look at me and they're like, I don't know how you hold positions overnight. And neither way is wrong nor right. It's just what's conducive for your lifestyle and for your personality and for your well-being.
Right. I was going to ask, that'd be one of the main questions, is that what did you struggle with at first? Because we can do part 1, part 2, and just kind of part 1 where we talk about what we're seeing in stocks right now and moving forward, kind of the strategy that you've been taught. Which we'll get into the strategies next is my point, because we're talking about, remember, the Zoom thing. So point being, I say we just finish this one out, go to the next Zoom link, and then get into your setup styles and strategies. But that's one thing I do want to ask: what did you struggle besides that? Which I always say that, and I've figured that out even the past few months, not only for myself, but then doing my website and all these traders coming to me. It's figuring out what kind of trader you are going to become. You think at first, and again, you think you have it figured out, but it comes a while till you start really figuring out what kind of trader you want to become. So maybe that was it. But other than maybe that, if that was it, what did you really struggle with at first in that first 3, 4, 5 years of trading?
I think a lot of it had to do with the type of stocks that I was trading for so long. There was the volatile penny stocks, and I was trading. I wouldn't go anywhere below $3 a share because the juice wasn't worth the squeeze for me. But I would stick between $3 and $10 a share, and trade on news, gap ups, and what's a certain biotech is gapping up because of a phase 2 release, whatever.
Right.
That's primarily what I was doing, and it just got to the point where once it ripped, they ripped, because we're talking like 2 million in flow, and they just, once they get going, they go. And then it just dumps, right? You get the sharp spike, and then you get the dump. And I just got sick of being caught in the dumps. And it seemed like almost every single week I was in a trade that got halted, either in my favor or against me. But it's such a wild swing of emotions.
Yeah, it's almost like in the wild, especially what you do now daily. It's probably also like you're in the Wild West, comparing it to it, which I know a lot of traders move over to that. I mean, that's why I tell a lot of top traders, even the ones that come to me, but that's what I tell a lot of you can sell. They're like, man, why do I see them like all the guys I follow? They're doing options or they're over in blue chips, and I'm like, that's usually where you move up to and from penny stock. If you start in small caps, I mean, very few stay in it forever. They a lot of them still do when it's hotter and there's movement to them, but and there's certain guidelines they stick to. But that's like the Wild West. They're like, hey,
Yeah.
I'm gonna stay out here in the East Coast at New York where things are a little more chill. You guys have fun out west, but you know what I'm saying.
Here's the crazy thing, and hindsight 2020, that pivot right there was one of the one of the best decisions I made in my trading career for sure, because look at the market that we're in right now. It is not friendly to penny stocks.
No, yeah, exactly, yeah.
So I mean, those day traders who are exclusively trading those low float rippers, you're not seeing those hardly ever in this kind of market. So I mean, so a lot, and what I've seen, a lot of these penny stock day traders, they've come to me and they're like, bro, this is completely out of style, and it'll come back just like everything else. But what if it takes 2 years? All likelihood, it probably won't take that long. But what if it does?
Right. Yeah.
Are you going to sit on the sidelines for 2 years? I don't know. I don't have the answer to that.
Yeah, and a lot of like back to the 2020 thing, like you said, a lot of traders got used to that crazy hot environment of 2020, and maybe that was the first time they started trading. Like you said, heck, you could just throw money at a stock and it pretty much just went up. And now they're like, whoa, and like you said, I'm sure the last 6 to 9 months, it for sure have been pouring to you, and I've gotten the same where it's like, this isn't what I'm used to and where I made a ton of money, and I'm like, because this isn't. You got to adapt and adjust. You got to adapt and adjust.
Bro, I kept saying in 2020 and 2021, and I got so much hate for this, and I said it out of a tone of love,
right? It wasn't like you were trying to be rude, like, oh, well, I'm not gonna go back to the day trade. Yeah, exactly. But yeah,
I was trying. I was really trying to help people to see the other side,
right?
And that was if you are in a trade and you jump in and that damn thing just immediately goes up, which we saw a lot of the past 2 years. That can be very, very deceiving. In the long run, that can actually do far more harm than good, because you don't know how to manage your risk because you didn't have to, right? You don't have to. You don't know how to manage your risk. You don't know how to manage the trade,
right? Yeah.
Which to me, that is what makes a great trader. When a trade goes against you, do you have the skill set and the patience to turn that trade from a loser to a winner?
Right.
That's what separates the great traders from the not great traders. And that's why I love the options so much, because you have so much more flexibility, especially when you're selling options. Like, for example, you asked me earlier if I've taken any trades today. The answer to that was yes and no, because what I do is I roll my contracts. Okay, so I'll roll them further out in time, or I'll do a diagonal spread to where I'll roll out the strike and the date. And what does that do as an option trader? That allows me, without fail, not without fail, that's not entirely true.
Higher percentage chance though.
Yeah, so I can roll my contracts and turn majority of my losers into winners.
Right.
And a lot of people are just like, well, how is that even possible? Selling options, you can do that all day long.
Yeah. It seems like essentially you're just giving yourself more time, because I do not do that. So that just essentially seems like you're doing.
Yeah, you give yourself more time, and you might, again, you can move up and down strike prices.
Right. Yeah.
There's so much flexibility, and if you're down in an options trade that you are selling, there is a way to turn that loser into a winner. You just got to find it.
Right. Yeah. Real quick, we'll finish this one out. We got 5 minutes left in part 1 here. As much as you could try to narrow it down, top 3 things any newer trader, what would be your advice? Top three advice for a new trader. What would be your top 3 things?
I would say, I'm speaking from an options perspective. If you're wanting to learn options, I strongly recommend learning how to trade shares first. Trading shares is much easier, much simpler, lower barrier to entry to learn than that of options, because with options with shares you buy and you sell.
Right, exactly.
And you mitigate your risk accordingly. With options, there are multiple moving parts. So Vega, Gamma, Delta, Theta, implied volatility, contract premium, volatility crush. So master shares first. or at least get yourself exposed to shares first. So that way you can see how the market
Right.
moves.
That's what I always tell traders too, because they always come like, man, learn how to trade exactly. If you can't read a chart, you ain't gonna be jumping into options and learning. You know what I'm saying? So let's start with the basics first. So 100% agree with you there.
Yeah. And the second thing is be open to people say, well, trading or investing, both. Both. They are not this or that. It's not salt and pepper, right? A meal can be very, really, really, really good when you put salt and pepper in it.
Yeah, right.
So learn both. And the
Right.
strategies and approaches to both with trading and investing are very, very different. So there's that. And the third thing I would recommend is if you are doing both trading and investing, be very, very, very clear as to what you are doing with a certain position. So if you enter a position, are you investing in it or are you trading it? Make that distinction very clear up front. Because I run into a lot of people like, oh, I bought this stock at this price because they got a whole bunch of really good news coming out in the future and this, that, and the other. And, but I think I should sell it at this price. I'm like, well, you're all over the place.
Yeah, right.
Whenever you talk about an entry and an exit, that has a defined risk parameter to it. So that to me is a trade. But now you're talking about fundamentals like new products and new services and their cash flows. That's investing talk. Keep them
Right.
separate.
100%. Now we're quick at the last 3 minutes. What do you look forward to in the next, say, 6 months of this year, moving to the beginning of 2023? When do you think we start seeing that turnaround with your little crystal Thanos ball over there?
I don't have a prediction, honestly, and I don't like predicting things. I just trade what I see, man. And it's such a nice place to be as a trader and an investor, to where somebody asks you, hey, when do you think the market will turn? And I just say, honestly, I don't really care. I do not say that to sound condescending or to sound rude or anything. It's just like, I really don't, because if the market goes down, I'm going to trade that. If the market goes sideways for 2 years, guess what? I'm going to make money in that.
Right. Yeah.
If the market goes up, well, obviously that's kind of a no-brainer. But either way, I don't care. The market is omnidirectional. People think it just goes up and down. No, it can go up. It can go kind of up. It can go sideways. It can go kind of. So it's omnidirectional. And only having one strategy to trade one direction of the market, I think it's not a bad thing. Some people just say, hey, I laser focus on this one thing. That's great. But I think having a plan for whatever the market does is never a bad thing.
Yeah. I think we'll always go back to, which will pretty much sum it down back to my sporting. Take what the defense gives you. Just take what the market gives you. It's always going to be a little different game. Some games you're going to have, like thinking of the like NFL. Some games Brady's going to have 50 plus, or Mahomes. Sorry, let's go to Mahomes real quick. Mahomes is going to have, that's right. Mahomes will have, so hold on, my bad real quick. Hold on, I forgot. I'm a big Denver fan, so I should have, yeah, I'm a bit, yeah. Hey, at least I like KC. So actually my first job out of college was actually just right, was at St. Joe. So I was a morning show host at St. Joe. So I was just above you, went to a game. You guys were super nice to me. I always been the Raiders, Chargers, nah. Chiefs fans, even though you're divisional, I like you Chiefs fans. So, but you get my point. Mahomes some games is going to have 50 points. Some games he's going to have to win with just 10 points on the board. And so it's taking what the defense gives you and take what the market essentially gives you.
That's right.
All right, boss. There's round one. Let's start up round two. Go to that same link. Man, now I'm gonna have to get your number. We're gonna have some good texting wars come up this fall when we have. I still think you guys beat us, but Denver's trying to make a comeback.
They are. Picking up Russ was not a bad move.
No, it wasn't. I'll see you in just a second in the other link.
Cool.
All right. So there's round one right there. So there's round one. We'll get part two going right now, team. So let's get.